story is just craziness to me, at least. So I wanted to share it with you. Now, let's get some background on these two before they met, because it wasn't until they met that the true crime spree really began. Okay, let's start with Raymond. So, Raymond Fernandez was born on December 17th, 1914, in Hawaii. Shortly after he was born, his family moved to Connecticut, and when Raymond was a teenager, he went to work on his uncle's farm in Spain. By the age of 20, Raymond met and went on to marry a local Spanish woman, and the two eventually had 4 children, which Raymond would eventually abandon them all later in life. So this guy, he's just a total winner. Anyway, after serving in Spain's merchant marine and then in the British intelligence during World War II, Raymond decided he was going to head back to America in search of work. Well, shortly after boarding a ship headed towards America, a steel hatch fell on him and fractured his skull, damaging his frontal lobe. Now, the frontal lobe, I believe, affects like decision making and rationality, that kind of thing. So, yeah. So he goes to the hospital to get checked out, that kind of thing. And I guess the doctors thought that he was okay because he was released shortly after. Now, upon leaving the hospital, for some reason, he stole some clothes, but was caught. So he was sentenced to 1 year in prison. Well, during this time, his cellmate somehow converted him into believing in voodoo and black magic. I would have loved to hear that pitch, you know what I mean? So now Raymond is all about the black magic and claimed that this black magic gave him irresistible power and charm over women. Okay. Anyway, continuing on. So let's move on to Martha Beck. Martha was born on May 6th, 1920 in Florida. Not much background was available on her childhood, but it did mention that she had a glandular problem causing her to be overweight. As a teenager, Martha ran away to join the circus. What? Like, I didn't know that people actually did that, you know? Like, I just think that's crazy. Anyway, so I guess that she went to school during the daytime and did circus stuff at night because she did eventually finish school, and she studied nursing. Now, unfortunately, due to her weight, she had trouble finding a job, and I'm like, that is so messed up. So like, they look at her resume and they're like, yeah, you're qualified, you'd be great, but yeah, you're too overweight, so no. Like, that's so messed up, you know what I mean? Anyway, so Martha eventually took a job as an undertaker's assistant, where she would prepare bodies for burial. She didn't do that job for too long, because she quit and moved to California to work as an army hospital nurse. During this time, she had been seeing a man, and she becomes pregnant. So she tells the guy, hey, I'm pregnant, so you know, we gotta get married, because that's what you were supposed to do back in the day. Anyway, well, baby daddy's all like, no, and bails. He just leaves her. Nice, right? Anyway, so Martha is left single and pregnant, so she moves back to Florida with a plan. Martha told people that the baby's father was a servant a story about it in the local paper. Crazy. So Martha gave birth to a little girl, and she actually begins dating a new man, a bus driver named Alfred. Well, Martha quickly becomes pregnant again, but this time she was able to convince the guy to marry her. So Martha and Alfred get married, and 6 months later get divorced. Yikes. So I guess they really didn't like each other. Anyway, shortly after the divorce, she gave birth to a son. And things are not looking good for Martha. She's unemployed, single, and has 2 very young children to care for. So what does she do? Well, she escapes into a fantasy world. She buys romance magazines and novels and watches romantic movies whenever she can. So she did eventually find a job in a children's hospital, so things seem to be looking up for her. Well, now at this point, I'm sure all like, okay, but how do these two meet? Well, you know how she was all like into those romance novels and magazines and stuff like that? Well, she wanted some real romance in her life, but it's 1947, so they don't have Tinder or Hinge or whatever dating apps that they have now. I don't know. So if you were looking for love back in the day, you would have to place an ad for yourself in the newspaper. What? Like, I don't think I could do that, because, you know, everyone can see that. And I don't know, if I didn't meet someone in person, I'd probably be single forever, because I could never put an ad for myself in a newspaper. Anyway, but it was called the Lonely Hearts section, something like that. So anyway, Martha placed an ad in the Lonely Hearts, which Raymond answered. So Raymond contacts Martha, and he makes plans to come and visit her. Now, he's in New York and she's in Florida, so he has to travel south to come see her. What Martha was unaware of was that by this time, Raymond, who, you know, uses his black magic to become irresistible to women, has been for some time using his irresistibleness to charm women and con them out of their money. So when Raymond found out that Martha was a nurse, he figured that she would have some kind of money that he could take from her for him. So Raymond shows up at Martha's house in Florida, ready to get his con on. But when she opens the door, he finds out that she has 2 kids, which she did not mention to him. So Raymond was not happy at all and ended the date early. Well, Martha was very upset. I guess it was love at first sight for her, because she became very distressed. She even threatened suicide if Raymond didn't continue seeing her. So for some reason, this type of crazy spoke to Raymond, because he decided to continue the relationship. He even told Martha about his past and the cons that he had been pulling off, and she didn't care. She was just like, cool. It was as though this man could do no wrong, and she was kind of obsessed with him. Shortly after they got together, for some reason Martha was fired from her job. So Martha and her 2 children moved to New York to be with Raymond. So she shows up at his house with her 2 kids, and Raymond is all like, yo girl, what we got going on is good, but those 2 kids, they gotta go. And she's all like, these 2 kids, the 2 kids that I gave birth to, that I have been raising, let me was a sign that the two were true soulmates, and they became devoted to each other, and they just had this crazy love for each other, you know. So Raymond convinces Martha to act as his sister while he continues to con women, and she's just like, okay. So the two of them would search the Lonely Hearts ads together for women to con. They traveled around the country acting as brother and sister while Raymond dated women under his sister's watchful and jealous eye. Now the deal was he could date these women and con them, but he could never sleep with them, right? So Raymond actually married one of his con victims, Myrtle Young, in 1948. Martha refused to leave the two alone on their honeymoon. Well, this aggravated Raymond's new wife, so Martha gave his new bride pills to calm down, which led to an overdose. Raymond and Martha took Myrtle to the hospital, where she died 6 days later. It's like, what were those pills? You know what I mean? Anyway, their next victim was 66-year-old Janet Fay. But this time, Raymond broke the one rule that Martha had. He slept with Janet. Oh no. But the worst part was, Martha walked in on the act. So Martha is pissed, right? So what does she do? Yell, scream, throw things? No, she does the only logical thing that she can think of. She beats Janet with a hammer. Like you do. What? But Janet doesn't die, so Raymond finishes her off by strangling her to death. What? Then they put Janet's body in a trunk and take her to Raymond's actual sister's house, okay? And bury her under cement in his sister's basement. Crazy. So then the two cleared out Janet's bank account and continued on, you know, as though everything was normal and fine. Yeah. So the couple then found their next victim, 41-year-old Delphine Downing. Delphine lived in Michigan with her 2-year-old daughter, Renelle. So Raymond and Martha go to Michigan to visit Delphine. They were only there for a few days when Delphine was suspicious of Raymond and Martha's relationship. Like, are you sure you guys are brother and sister? Because something ain't right here. And she confronts the two of them. How did that conversation go? You know what I mean? Anyway, so now somehow, I don't know how this went down because there wasn't very much details, but somehow they dosed this woman with sleeping pills, and so Delphine is unconscious, and Raymond and Martha begin arguing about the situation, you know, like, what are they gonna do when 2-year-old Renelle walks in and sees her mother unconscious? The little girl becomes upset and starts crying very loudly. So to shut the kid up, Martha decides to, I guess, choke her a little bit to keep her quiet. Now, it doesn't kill her or anything. I think she just chokes her until she's unconscious. Yeah. So now they're both passed out, you know, in this house, and the two of them notice that the little girl has like markings on her neck, and they're like, oh my gosh, you know, if Delphine wakes up and sees these markings on her daughter's neck, she's going to call the police. What are they gonna do? Well, they decide to kill Delphine, and Raymond shoots her in the head. For some reason, they decide not to kill the little girl, Renelle. was in the basement. So, they were both arrested, and Raymond initially confessed to 17 murders. 17. But then quickly recanted. Like, you know what I said earlier? Like, never mind. That didn't happen. So, the reason why he confessed, he felt safe about confessing, was because in that state there was no death penalty. But what he didn't realize was that the police were able to connect him to the murder of Janet Faye in New York, where there is a death penalty. So, guess what? The murderous couple was extradited. Yeah, back to New York to face charges for the murder of Janet Faye. The media began calling the couple the Lonely Hearts Killers. Both of them took the stand to try and save their own lives, but the jury wasn't buying it. They were like, y'all are evil, right? So both Raymond and Martha were sentenced to die in the electric chair. They were both executed on March 8th, 1951. Now, I have their last words, which... Okay, Raymond's last words were, "I want to shout it out. I love Martha. What do the public know about love?" Martha's last words were, "My story is a love story, but only those tortured by love can know what I mean. I am not unfeeling, stupid, or moronic. I am a woman who had a great love and will always have it." That was not love. I think that they were confused on what love meant, because